I must have started fishing here when I was about 9 or 10 years old. Used to sneak down to the Double Bay Wharf to fish, and then that got a bit boring, so we'd come out here. No cleats, no safety equipment. We didn't tell Mum because she didn't really allow us to come fishing out here, but my mate and I would come here most weekends. Today, when I'm in my late 40s and I'm still pretty passionate about fishing, and I absolutely love it. I'm here every opportunity I get. You know, it's a funny mix between a complete exhilaration when you catch a big fish and the skill you need to bring it in and land it on the rocks without damaging the fish, because a lot of the fish we release back into the ocean. And also for the ones we keep, there's a certain pride of being able to put food on the table. Before I even come down, I'm checking the apps to see what the swell period is, how big the swell is, the swell direction, the wind, very important. And I look at that and I know this area pretty well. I patrol here and I also fish here and I swim here, and you know, so I'll look at the apps and I'll see if it's a long swell period. I'll know that I need to look further out to see what the swell's doing. I'll wait a little bit longer before I come down onto the rocks. I'm coming down, and before I'm even getting onto the rocks, I'm standing in a very, very safe, dry location, and I'm looking at the swell for about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's very important to understand both the swell direction and how it's actually impacting the area you're planning on fishing on. Once I'm satisfied that it's safe, I'm putting on my cleats. It's very important to have a pair of cleats for grip on the rocks, because the rocks are a very slippery, watery surface. I put my PFD on and I check that it's fitting properly, and then I make sure that I'm dressed appropriately for the surf. I look at where the waves are breaking and I decide, okay, if I'm going to stand here and fish here, this is probably where I would end up getting washed in, and this is where I would then come out. I always assume I'm going to get washed in when I come down, so I'm always wearing board shorts even on the coldest days. The most experienced people I know have been washed into the ocean. Rock fishing is a dangerous sport. The ocean is incredibly powerful and unpredictable. You need to assume that if you are standing on the rocks near the ocean, regardless of how much experience you have, regardless of whether you're an Olympic level swimmer or can't swim at all, you have to assume you're going to get washed in and that you're going to have trouble getting out. And you absolutely have to assume that you're going to have to find a way out, probably not in your best physical condition. And by doing that, that forces you to look at the rocks and say, if I get washed into the water here, this is where I'm going to come out, because this is where I'm safe. You can't assume that you're going to just jump back up on the rocks and climb out, because that's not the way it works. There's been a lot of near misses here. I myself have never actually been washed in. I have fished in places where people next to me have been washed in. One particular case that comes to mind was there was a gentleman fishing next to me in open top waders, and he was casting next to me on a rock just over there, and he got knocked down by a wave. He wasn't watching the swell, so as that wave came in, I was able to sort of duck in and lean into the wave as it was breaking. The wave hit him, knocked him backwards, and as the water came around and rushed back down the rock, it filled up his waders, and he was on an angled rock, and it started washing him into the water, and he was getting so heavy he couldn't actually hold himself up onto that rock. My heart was racing, the adrenaline was pumping. I actually had this whining in my ears. I couldn't really hear much, and all I could think of was how to get this guy back up onto the rocks without actually harming myself at the same time. And look, at that point, all the life-saving training kicked in, so I was pretty lucky, I suppose, that I've had that for a while. I was standing next to him, one second he was there, and the next second he wasn't. And then I realized what was happening, and I had to drop my rod and run out and get him. And I sort of had to clamber down a bit of a step, thinking to myself, as I was doing it, right, so if I clamber down here, I've got to make sure I don't get washed in. How am I going to get him up? And luckily another wave came in. I was able to pull him up on the wave and get him to safety. And look, truth be told, I don't think he would have made it had that next wave not come in, because he was getting really heavy and he was not wearing a life jacket. And even if he were wearing a life jacket, I think he may have been too heavy. Like, he could have had an extra 30 to 40 kilos worth of water on him, just filling up those waders. And I think he would have just gone under. And so he was very lucky that, you know, circumstances were what they were, and there happened to be somebody else there. And he got out and emptied his waders out and then just kept on fishing the same way. You know, I remember just sitting there going, just breathing really heavily, saying to this guy, and I remember I said to him, "What the hell are you doing? You know, you put a life jacket on, this is so dangerous." And you know, he just didn't really understand what I was saying, and he just kept on fishing. I ended up going home after that. I was actually a bit shaken by it, because on reflection, it was actually quite a close call. Oh, I like to think of myself being 80 years old, coming out on small days and fishing for luderick. They say it's an old man's sport, although I have to say I really enjoy it right now. Fishing is a part of my life, it always has been. I still get that high when I catch a fish. It doesn't matter whether it's a big fish or a small fish. I hope to fish out here with my grandchildren one day. And you know, I think we're privileged and lucky to live in a place where the water is clean, the fish are abundant, and they're edible, and it's safe to eat them, and the oceans are clean. I see myself being more and more of an advocate for cleaner oceans, for you know, looking after our stock of fish, and you know, doing more and more of this kind of advocacy to ensure not only safe fishing that everyone can enjoy, because I do think it's a wonderful way for us to join. I've made a lot of friends out on the rocks, but also a way for our grandchildren to continue enjoying that by being safe and, you know, having clean oceans and having an abundance of fish to continue to fish and eat.